Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY, and we're jumping right back in here on my 2002 WRX, and we're going to be tackling a project I've been wanting to do for quite a while now, and that is upgrading the single DIN stereo that's in there right now to one of these IDoing 9-inch touchscreen Android head units. So stick around for that. So let me go ahead and show you everything that comes with one of these IDoing head units when you go ahead and buy it. Get everything out of the box here. And I've been wanting to get one of these IDoing stereos now for a while. I've seen, they're getting pretty popular on YouTube. The only thing really that was stopping me up to this point from getting one was the price. They sit around just shy of like $500 for one of these. And it just wasn't a necessity in the car. So I haven't really gone and picked one up. But I reached out to IDoing and I was like, hey, maybe we can work something out here. If you want to send me one out, I can take a look at it, I can install it and do a little bit of a video on it. And yeah, they were more than willing to do that. They totally hooked me up, gave me a deal that was something I couldn't pass up on. So here we have the radio. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to upgrade to this is right now I just have a single DIN Kenwood head unit, very period correct stereo in the WRX right now. But one thing it doesn't have, which I do have in my Forester, is built-in GPS. I have an Alpine unit in my Forester, a double DIN touchscreen, same thing, and that just has the built-in GPS. If you don't want to dig your phone out of your pocket, it's got the GPS built right into it, right on the screen. You don't have to mount your camera anywhere. And if you do own a 2002 WRX, you know that there's not a whole lot of room to put your phone anywhere in the console. Again, sort of period correct, the consoles and everything. We're pretty small in that aspect. Cars nowadays have lots of areas for placing your phone and different things like that, and I don't particularly like mounting my phone to like vent mounts or things like that. So what this will allow me to do is have the built-in GPS. I don't have to worry about digging my phone out of my pocket. I should just be able to pull it up on the unit itself. And other than that, it's just going to look really nice in the car. It's going to modernize the interior and make it look just like a much more modern car. Nothing wrong with the interior right now. It is, like I said, very period correct. I just wanted something a little bit more modern and something that could give me GPS right there available at my fingertips. So as you saw me unbox, we have the head unit itself. We have the IDoing instruction manual. You have a warranty card with some QR codes. I'm assuming that probably brings you to their website where they probably have install tips, I would imagine. You have your first bag of goodies, which is kind of a mix of harnesses here. I know that this one is the factory stereo harness right here. You have some auxiliary RCA jacks. This one obviously plugs into the back of the unit. Not 100% sure what this one is. This might be the backup camera one, which we won't be using. I don't have a backup camera on this. And another connector over here. We'll obviously get into all of this and figure out what these are. But you have your main harness there. They do include 2 plastic trim tools, which is pretty cool if you don't have any of your own. You have your microphone provided. I do have that Kenwood unit in there, like I explained, which already has a microphone mounted where I like it for handling Bluetooth calls and everything like that. So as long as the jacks are the same, I don't see why they would be different. We're just going to use the one I already have installed in the car, but it does come with its own. We have the GPS unit, which we're going to mount up on the dash. This is your 4G receiver. If you wanted to go ahead and purchase a SIM card and actually have a cell plan dedicated for this, you could install this as well to receive 4G signal. Right now, out of the box, I'm not going to be doing that, but I may in the future. I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, we're not going to install these today. I'm going to hang on to them. I may change my mind in the future and actually want to run 4G internet to this thing. Right now, not something I need. You have a single female USB extension. Another cable here, this looks to be just a universal cable if you weren't wiring this up, for example, to my 2002 WRX. I believe it's the same exact cable right here. This one is just pre-wired for my vehicle, but it does look like they include just a generic one if you wanted to wire it into your own car. This to me looks like a reverse camera wiring harness. I'm not 100% sure on that, but fairly positive this is for a reverse camera. This is sort of a dual harness here. This is the portion where you would install your SIM card, again, if you were going to run those 4G internet receivers here, and as well as if you have an aftermarket audio system here with different speakers, an amp, subwoofer, you have all those at your disposal if you wanted those, and there's your microphone in right there. You have a dual female USB cable, some provided mounting screws, and then another RCA connector. just looking at the tags on these, like you have CAN TX, CAN RX. I'm assuming this would be maybe for a newer vehicle that had an aftermarket stereo that runs off a CAN system. The 2002 WRX here is older, does not run off a CAN system. Again, I assume this is probably just has everything you could ever want to install this in your car. A lot of this seems sort of like generic stuff for different styles of stereos and everything. This 2002 WRX does not have a complicated entertainment system with the stereo and everything in it like that. A lot of this stuff's gonna remain unused, or at the very least unplugged. But all we can do now is go ahead and get this thing installed. So I've already gone ahead and I've removed the center faceplate from the interior of my car. And as you can see, I have the factory fake carbon trim in my car. And this head unit comes basically with this silver finish, which would match the non-carbon interior, just the standard Imprezas. And if you didn't choose this as the factory option for your WRX, it would just have this silvery trim. So the one thing I am going to do, it's not an exact match, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to wrap this in some carbon fiber trim. This complex curve down here is going to be a little bit of trouble, I think, but I have plenty on hand in case I make a mistake. There's two different ways I can do this. I want to try it just with one full piece first, but let's go ahead and dive into that. All right guys, so I know I cut away there. I figured I wouldn't bore you guys with the lengthy process of wrapping this thing. It's by no means perfect. I forgot how challenging this glossy stuff is. I'm sure if I get the light right there, you can see there's some little nibs of stuff I got underneath there and some air bubbles that just won't come out. It's certainly not 100% good. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it's good enough to go in the car. It's a dark interior. You're never really gonna notice a lot of the imperfections a lot. Because of just the way the curves were, and I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of material. I put a seam here and there on each corner, and then there's on the underside, you're never really going to see this side, but there's a seam here, and then a seam here where the two halves came together. You only really see that one seam right there on the bottom, but like I said, dark interior on the car, you're never really going to see this, and I think it looks better than the silver. It's going to match the carbon accents that are already on the inside of the car. Now the only other work that I'm going to have to do, and I did know this going in because I watched a separate video, is the actual like tech portion of this head unit here, this single DIN portion. For whatever reason, even though it is specifically made for an 0203 WRX, it's just a little bit too wide to fit inside the bezel here, so we are going to trim this. Now I know with these interior pieces, some people are gonna freak out that I'm trimming this because, I mean, they're not the end of the world expensive, but they're not like super crazy rare, but they are sort of rare, and they're not cheap to replace if you can find them. They are starting to pop up more and more on eBay, I noticed. However, the vent piece that goes above this piece in my car is already damaged. I can throw up some pictures here. It was before I started the channel when I was doing some of the work on this car. I had to repair it. You can see it was broken here. It had some screw holes. I had to epoxy a piece in here, and then I took that same wrap and I just kind of covered it just so it sort of matched. It's not the exact same carbon match, but because that piece is already damaged, you usually don't find these pieces being sold just by themselves. They're usually sold this piece and the vent piece together, or all of the trim, which is the vent circle surrounds and the window switch trim on the door handles and everything. You generally don't find each piece by itself. So the reason why I'm not gonna feel too bad about trimming this is if I do want to go ahead and replace it in the future, I need to replace that top piece anyway, which means I can jump on eBay, I can bite the bullet on the prices and just get a new vent piece and a new faceplate. So that's just a long drawn out way of letting you know why I don't really mind too terribly much about trimming this to make that head unit fit. So I just took this over to the bench, put it in the vise, and I just used my air-powered finger sander just to cut these 2 little relief notches in either side of the faceplate there so that this will fit in, and we can go ahead and slide that in. And all this does, there's no mechanical screws, it just snaps in place. I already had it in there once. I forgot to hit the record button, so I pulled it back out. But once it's snapped in there, it's actually quite secure. I was a little skeptical at first when I was putting it in there, but it does snap in quite nice. You do have to kind of get in and just make sure that they latch all the way over. The bottom usually goes right in. A couple of times I've had this in. So the bottom usually goes right in. You just have to push far enough to make sure that these snap right over the lip on the top. And once that's snapped in, it is actually very, very secure in there. So now we can go ahead and jump in the car and do the actual installation of this head unit into the car. And so here we are in the car. You can see that I've already removed the faceplate, obviously, because we attached it to the new head unit. That's simple enough to get out. Just some trim tools will pop it out. You can even use the ones that come in the kit for the head unit if you want to. But that's already removed. And now to get this single DIN stereo and cubby combo out of here, there's 6 screws. There's 4 screws, 2 on each side up here near the head unit, and then there's 2 screws down below, a little bit deeper. It's where it comes in handy to have a magnetic tipped screwdriver. A lot of times you'll drop those screws down in there. I've lost quite a few over the years working on these by dropping those screws down below. Now that the head unit's out, we can go ahead and disconnect all of the wiring. There's a ground cable that just pushes onto this little tab here on the side. The antenna pulls straight out of the back. And then the body harness for the stereo comes right out. And then we also have the last connection here, which is the 3.5 millimeter jack for our microphone. That comes right out. And then I installed that stereo using a adapter harness, so we're just going to disconnect that from the main factory harness. And so now at this point, I'll just let you know there's 2 things that I already did, not because I didn't want to show you guys how I did it, but because I already filmed this once and I started editing and realized that my camera settings were way off and the footage looked terrible. So we're back in here just redoing everything, showing you how I went ahead and installed it. And the first thing that I did was install the GPS unit that goes up on the dash. And that's this blue plug right here. All I did was popped up the triple gauge pod up here so that I could see some daylight down through here. I fished the wire down through from the top. I had to cut a little notch, not in the gauge pod itself, but just in the dash material where the hole for this gauge pod is. Just a little relief notch for the wiring, and then we stuck that GPS unit up there on the dash. So that's all set up and ready to go. And then the other thing I did is install the Wi-Fi antenna. That's this yellow plug right here. All I did was peel the double stick tape off that it comes with, and we just stuck it right up under here. It's not that far up underneath, just right up underneath here. There's some flat plastic right here. Just went ahead and stuck that right up underneath there, so that's all installed. So now go ahead and I'll walk you through where these connections are going to be going and what harnesses that we're going to be using. So now we need to do a little bit more disassembly, only because even though I'm not going to be doing the permanent routing for the USB cable extensions, I do want to get it run so I don't have to worry about taking this head unit out again in the future. So I need to get this lower trim off so that we can just feed the USB extension down. And then later on when I want to run it permanently back here, I believe I'm going to run it into the center console, that or one of these blank plugs on the console itself just down here. But either way, I just want to have the cables down here so that the head unit can stay in place, and then I can just continue work when I get some free time down in this area. So we'll unplug my airlift controller. And I haven't tried to actually get this trim up with this airlift controller mount that I bought yet. So let's go ahead and see if we can even do that. Shift knob comes off. The centerpiece here that goes around the emergency brake cable comes off. And then, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to take this mount off. Now that mount's off, we should be able to just get that off of there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use the dual USB harness. I was actually going to run both harnesses to have 3 USBs, but I think that's a bit overkill. I really don't see myself in a scenario where I need 3 USB connections to this head unit. So I'm just going to use the dual. That way I have 2 ports available if I need them. I'm just going to take a second here, and from down inside the shifter area here, I'm just going to work it back up through till the connector portion here comes out where the head unit will be installed. And there we go, we got that pulled through right there. It's actually right as I was cleaning up everything from this video, Amazon stopped by and delivered that double USB outlet that I had ordered. So with the magic of editing, you guys get to see it now instead of at the very end of the video. But we do have to take apart everything that we just put back together here in the console. We got to get this center console out so I can drill a hole to mount the USB connector. And then even though it's a little bit of a pain, it's going to be easier if I can get this console out of the vehicle to actually install this. It's not that big of a deal really. You have 2 Phillips head screws just down over here, a Phillips head screw right in the center, and then 2 Phillips head screws down inside the cargo area here inside your armrest. And so I decided I'm going to go ahead and mount it right here. I just want to keep it on this flat spot here rather than this flat spot because your parking brake, your handbrake mechanism fits right behind there, and so that'll be interfering. So we just want to keep it over here. Just going to kind of pick a random spot, in this case to work with the harness that I bought, 29mm hole saw, and we'll just punch that in there. This is just a touch bigger than what's going to end up going through there, so that's good. We don't have to worry about it like binding up or anything, but it won't be so big that it's too loose for it to mount properly. And so for this particular USB extension that I bought, I was on the fence for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and I am going to use the provided cover that comes with it just to keep those covered up. I'm not going to use them a whole lot, and that's the only reason why. So we'll slip that on first. And then that'll just get nice little rubber covers to keep those closed when they're not in use. We'll feed our USBs through the hole we just made. And then there's a threaded nut, and that's what's going to secure it in place. So we'll slip that over the ends of the USBs. And just thread that on the end and tighten it down. Probably just going to do it by hand. It's not something super crucial that needs to be threaded down like crazy tight, and it's not the end of the world should it ever come undone. And it's easy enough to get to if for some reason it does loosen up. Just looking down in there, I'm gonna make sure that it's straight and hand tighten it down. And there we go, that's that all installed in there. So let's get this back in the car. And then we can just take the USB harness that we already ran and plug these right into those just to extend it back to the portion that is back here in the console. All right, and I was gonna zip tie these up out of the way, but honestly, I think they're gonna stay out of the way. If for some reason they start to interfere with the parking brake mechanism here, if they move or something, I can always come in and add some zip ties, but they're tucked out of the way nicely there, and then it just runs up underneath this part of the console, and they just tuck in nicely there, and then that's where they route up through to go behind the head unit. And then down here in the console itself, we've got the USB plugs themselves. You can see right there's the rubber cover, and then the two USB ports right there where you can plug in whatever you need right into the head unit. And now we can go ahead and work on getting the unit wired up and get everything all connected, and finally we'll get this thing into place once that's all done. But we're going to start with this connector right here. It's the one that has the smaller black connector. That's what's going to plug into the back of the head unit here. And then the largest of the three white plugs is what's going to plug into the factory harness on this 2002 WRX. And for this installation, we're not using any of the other connections, any of the RCA connections, or the other two white plugs on there. We're just not using them. That plugs in right over here. And then as much as this adds a whole bunch of extra wiring, because we don't need a bunch of this, we still need to install this harness. It's the harness that has the SIM card holder on it, and the only thing that we need off of this harness is simply just this black microphone plug that's on there. And that's going to plug into the largest of these white plug openings right here. And these plugs are a little bit stiff. You do have to kind of muscle them in there. So now that that's installed, we can go ahead and get the USB harness plugged in, and that's going to go on the bottom row of these white connectors, the second one from the right, the 6-pin connector. Then we can plug in our blue connector here on the back for the GPS antenna, as well as the yellow connector for the Wi-Fi antenna. If you were going to run your 4G antennas, that's these two purple connectors over here. Now, I have to be a little careful because, like I said, I did already film this and then realized the footage was bad. I've already peeled the protector, the screen protector that this comes with off. So I don't want to scratch anything, but we're going to take this large white connector and we're just going to plug it into the large white body harness connector. Then once that's in, we can find our 3.5 millimeter microphone jack, which is hiding somewhere back here. And like I said, we'll plug that into this big mess of a harness here. Now that leaves us with the ground connector over here that we pulled off the side of the factory stereo, as well as it was being run with the Kenwood unit. Now I've watched a couple videos on people installing these different Subarus, as well as there was one video on a 2002 like mine, and they don't use that connector. I was going to just wire up a ring terminal to a male spade connector and just screw the ring terminal into the side of the housing here, and then take that male spade and plug it into there. However, everybody else seems to just not run it, and it seems to run perfectly fine. So being that I just don't have the materials on hand to make that tiny little jumper cable, I'm just not going to use it. Just tuck that up out of the way. And all that leaves us is the antenna, which is the short one here. I don't have a lot of room on that one. This may look a little bit different than yours. I have the, I believe it's the Grimspeed powered antenna installed. So this plug may look a little bit different than the factory one, but that's just going to plug in over here into this big round plug on the back. Just like that. And then now is just a game of getting all these cables back in there so we can fit this in. And the one thing I do try to do is to get them as far back as possible, because this sits right above your HVAC controls, and there's some of those controls are actuated by little cables and little arms that get pulled by the cables, and you don't want to get those bound up so they don't work anymore. Once we get those tucked out of the way, we can line our faceplate up. Pop it into place just like that. All right, so I actually have had quite a bit of time to play around with this. Initially, there were a few things that I didn't like that I were expecting, but now that I've played around with it, I've sorted a lot of things out, and there's really only a couple of gripes that I have with this unit, but let's go over the good and the bad. So the only bad things that I can mention with this unit right now, at least the way that I see it and what I wanted out of this unit, we can dive into without even turning the unit on, and that's the cup holder up here. It won't come out just with the slope of the top edge of this raised, because it does stick off the dash a little bit. It just doesn't work. Is it the end of the world for me? No, I can honestly say in the amount of years I've owned this vehicle, I have never once used this pull-out cup holder, so that's not a deal breaker for me. I just wanted to point it out that if you are somebody that uses this cup holder a lot, you're not going to be able to use it. And I have the camera set up right now pretty much like my eye level here, sitting in the driver's seat, and you'll notice just with your sight line down here, the only thing you can't, I mean, you can see most of your controls well enough to know how to use them. You just don't see the two buttons, the one for the AC and the one for the rear window defrost. There's plenty of room to get to them because they put like a little recessed area behind this front edge. You just have to remember that they're there. So really all it is just that you can't see them, but you have more than enough access to them, so it's not the end of the world. Just thought I would point those out. But we'll go ahead and we'll turn the unit on here. And you can see I already set it up with that Subaru logo. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And you can see right now it's automatically connecting to the Android Auto, the wireless Android Auto. Haven't even taken my phone out of my pocket. So turn the exposure down a little bit just so you can see the screen better, and it's not a big glare with the white images on there. But you can see Android Auto automatically opens up. It automatically starts my Pandora. You have your maps over here, which launches. Initially, when I first installed this unit, this navigation window here wouldn't automatically come up. It was just sort of a gray screen with the Android Auto logo and a little error message saying that there was an error connecting to Android Auto, with a little option to select exit, but when you would push exit, it wouldn't do anything. You could still get to the navigation by just hitting the little navigation button for the Android Auto over here on the side. It just wouldn't normally work. For some reason, because I do turn the battery off in this car when it's just parked up like this in the winter, so I had the battery shut off overnight. I came back out the next day, which was actually earlier this morning, and turned it back on, and everything's functioning. So it looks like it just kind of needed a hard reset or something, but there's no errors now with the Android Auto, which is awesome. So let's go right to the home. You hit the little home button over here. As far as your buttons on the side, the power button there, if you just tap it once, it's a mute button. If you hold it, it shuts the screen off. But everything continues to run. But if you don't want the screen on, it'll just turn it off. You can tap it again, and it comes right back on. You've got a back button here, just like you would, on if you have an Android phone. It's the same exact back button. So we have nothing to back up to right now, but if you were in a menu, you can use that to back out. Volume up, volume down. It has a little reset button here, and then it has another button here that says mic. So I don't know if that's actually maybe an LED in there. I haven't taken a Bluetooth call yet with this, so maybe that lights up when it recognizes that you have your mic connected. I'm not 100% sure. I do know the one below it is like one of those ones you stick a little paper clip or whatever you have, and you can push that and it'll do a hard reset on the unit. But as far as the top's concerned, you've got your back button as well up here. You've got the circle button in the middle. Playing around with this, I'm not 100% sure what the circle button does yet, but the square button will open all your windows. I just started this up, so there's only one window open, so there's really not a whole lot to do there. And then we get to what was my first gripe. If you hit the navigation button, like right now it brought up Android Auto. I thought I had it set to the dedicated GPS, so let me check that out because I wanted to walk you through that anyway. But I will say initially it was trying to load Google Maps, which is fine if you have a Wi-Fi connection, but if you're on the road and you don't want to kill the battery on your phone or chew through your mobile hotspot data to set the hotspot up on your phone, that was kind of disappointing because I thought this had built-in GPS. It says in the ad online that it has built-in GPS, and that's what I love about the Alpine unit that I have in my Forester, is having that built-in GPS where it's all offline. It uses the unit up there on the dash to get your GPS. So we will go back to home, and what I ended up sorting that out with was you just go to settings here, common settings, and I don't like the navigation on boot, so I have that turned off. But if you go down here where it says navigation app, it was set default to maps. And then I found this, the iGo Primo over here. I had to do some Googling. I haven't actually used it yet because the signal here in the barn for GPS is almost nothing because it's a metal pole barn with metal sides and a metal roof. You just don't get good GPS signal out here. But from everything I'm Googling online, this is the one you want to go to for the built-in maps. So you just select that, hit back, go back home, go to your navigation, and you can see it's loading up the iGo app now. And there you go. It has not actually connected yet. Because the car's been sitting out here. You can see at the top it's saying looking for GPS signal. This location it has on here is relatively close to me. This is about like 3 hours from where I'm at right now, so it does kind of know my general area. But yeah, it is looking for GPS signal. But I'm super happy now that I figured this out because that was kind of disappointing. That was one of the main features I was looking for, is the built-in offline GPS. So knowing that that's on there, that's a huge plus. And then down here, we have this little box button that just brings up all your apps. There's built-in apps here. You've got Chrome, File Explorer, Play Store, music, stuff, your radio mixer, which we'll get into in a minute. You've got YouTube, YouTube Music, Pandora, Spotify, Google Maps, Waze, the Z-Link 5 down here. If you're curious, this is how you can get back to your Bluetooth Android Auto if you kind of lose it. But you can always come up here and hit the square, and then that'll bring up your Android Auto, which is right over here. And then down here on the bottom, you've got the little music button right here. This is like some pre-built-in stuff that they loaded on the unit. I don't know if it was for testing it or whatnot. But if you were to load through that USB, if you wanted to physically load some music onto this, like this is a 126 gigabyte drive in here, you could load a whole bunch of music on there and not have to worry about any type of connection if that's what you wanted. So you can do that. The Bluetooth just brings you back to your Bluetooth information from your phone. And then the one here on the right, this is your radio, and again you can click it and just bring it up big and everything like that. You do, however, have to set it up for your country. It does show it in the instructions, but if you're curious, just show you real quick how to do that. Come over here to the settings, and you're going to come down to the factory settings. You will have to put a password in, and that just comes with your unit. It was in the pamphlet of instructions that I had. It's probably pretty universal, I would imagine. But then you're just going to come down to your radio section here for your radio settings, and you just want to go to your radio zone setting, and you can see I've got mine set up for America, and then that's how it's going to be able to detect what local radio stations you have based on your local radio specific details and everything. And then over here again is just another list of all your applications right there. You can hit the phone button, and because this is linked to my phone, it brings up the address book or your recent calls. You can just select from there, which is really cool to have that function. And then of course, like I said, when I first turned this on, you saw the Subaru logo, and I said I would mention how to do that. There might be another way to go about doing this, but when I was sort of messing around with the navigation, trying to figure out the issue I was having with wondering whether there actually was built-in navigation or not, I figured out how to do it this way. There might be another workaround on how to do this, but if you go back to your navigation app, you can see logo set is an option in there. So you just hit logo set, go back home, hit your navigation, and then you get this screen here, and it just has like every vehicle manufacturer logo you can imagine in there. And just come over to the Subaru one, hit OK. Set successfully. It's going to restart the unit, and you get the Subaru logo here. When it restarts is when you get these long load screens, but even having the battery disconnected and then reconnecting it when I came out here today to shoot this video, everything was very fast. You just get a quick blink of the Subaru logo and you can see there's the unit sort of set factory logo there, and then it comes up, and then it's going to connect Bluetooth and pull up my Android Auto again. And there you go. Android Auto pulls right up. I do find it connects a little bit faster if the battery has not been disconnected. So if I come out, just turn the key, it connects pretty quick. If I do, however, have the battery disconnected and then I flip the switch to reconnect the battery power, it does take a little bit to detect the phone, but if I don't do all that, it's pretty quick to detect the Android Auto. So I'm actually really happy that I went ahead and installed this. Like I said, there was those couple of little things that I was not liking at first, being that it seemed like at first it didn't have the built-in GPS, which is a big reason why I bought this to replace the old unit. But now we have that figured out. That should be all set to go. And then there was just that one little error message when I was first messing around. This didn't seem to want to go away with the Android Auto. That's all gone now. So I honestly have absolutely zero complaints with this. The sound quality is great. Keep in mind that an updated head unit, even that Kenwood that was in here, will produce some better sound quality, but only to a certain point, because then you're just limited to the quality of the speakers that are installed in the car. Again, this is a 2002 era Subaru WRX. It doesn't have super premium speakers in it, so I could always go ahead and replace those speakers out with better speakers. I am considering maybe getting the under-seat factory subwoofer that you could get back in the day when these were available. But overall, just having installed this, the sound quality is great. The functionality of it's great. There's no delays. It's all very quick. It's basically just a phone or a tablet mounted right to your dash, and I have no complaints whatsoever. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this one, guys. I do want to give a big shout out to IDoing Stereo for sending this head unit out to me so that I could get it installed and showcase their product. It's honestly everything that I was looking for, so huge thanks to them for hooking me up the way that they did. And as always, guys, if you liked the video, be sure to hit that like button. Feel free to leave a comment below, and if you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing. Thanks.